Okay, this video is to show you how to make the vertically striped zigzag. This one right here is the bracelet that the tutorial is written on, but I had to finish it to take the pictures and everything, so the one that's in the video is going to be a little different. This one is 8 strings, and this is a double zigzag, just so that I can show you how to join it at the end. But just ignore this half for now. Just pretend that it's this part, and it'll be tied exactly the same as if it's a regular zigzag. So I've got it started already, just because this is just repeating. You'll be able to see the important parts. So the vertically striped zigzags are tied in the alpha style. You should be able to do that before you attempt this. And this one is 8 strings. This one that the tutorial is written on is more than 8, but it won't matter. This is just to teach you the technique. So to start, when you're doing vertical stripes, you're going to tie the knots with what I call the letter strings, because this is tied in alpha style. So this one that's going to be woven would be the background string. So all the knots are going to be tied onto this one. So you just tie a knot with the letter string like you would in any alpha bracelet, and then you just kind of give it a tug to make it sit in place, and you just keep going down the line tying with the letter strings. It's really pretty easy as long as you know the knots. The thing that's more tricky is the corners of the zigzag. The corners are the only place that you will tie with the background string, but I'll show you that when we get to there. It just lets them stay more pointy rather than getting curved. When you're designing your own pattern for the vertically striped zigzags, if you want it to be mirrored on each side of the stationary strings, you just have to make sure that your pattern is mirrored before you hit the stationary strings, and that way it will be mirrored on the other side too. So these two right here are my stationary strings. They are not weaving back and forth, they're just straight down through the bracelet. So this one here will be the last one to go that way, and then we'll switch and go that way. So just go ahead, and it's exactly the same, just tying knots with the letter strings. Give it a tug to keep the line straight. And this works the same as alphas. If you pull too hard, your knot will pop through, so you'll have to undo it and redo it. So just try not to pull too hard. Okay, so now we're at the end point. So here I'm going to take the background string and tie it onto the letter string. So that's the final knot of this first half of the zigzag. And then to go back again, I'm tying with the background string instead of the letter string, just because it keeps the point of the zigzag more into a point. You can tie it with the letter string, but the point will end up kind of rounded some of the times. So I found if you just tie it with the background string, it'll stay pointy. And then you just keep going, tying with the letter strings. And just like an alpha, you need to make sure when you're tying letter knots that you tie them nice and tight up against the last knot, or else your lines won't be straight. So that's our first turn, and then we just keep going. Just tie with the letter string again, all the way across. This one right here is just a simple two-colored vertical zigzag. You can make them more than two colors, but just remember that if you want the pattern to be mirrored on either side of the stationary strings, you have to make sure that you get all of the colors mirrored. So it gets harder to make a pattern with more colors unless you want your bracelet to be huge. And just give it a little tug. You just keep giving it a little tug every now and then if I see that the lines aren't lining up quite straight. So again, just tie with the letter string. Give it a little tug again. I usually give it a little tug after each row just to keep it straight before I start the next row. Okay, so then this will be the last row before the end, because these two right here are the stationary strings. You can see they're just straight through. So we'll go ahead and finish the last one. Okay, and then since this is a double zigzag, it doesn't matter if you do the background onto the letter or the letter onto the background. It doesn't make a difference. So I'm just going to keep doing the letter. And this is why I hate cheap string. Okay. So I can fix that later. Okay, so now we're at the point where we're going to join the two zigzags. So you just take the innermost strings, and you can either do this one on top or that one, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do this one and just tie a regular forward knot. And you're done.